G'day guys and welcome back to the Bounty Riders YouTube channel. Today we are back with another trade rumours and confirmed video. I'm repping the high vis right now because I'm on the Giants bandwagon, but we're here to talk more about the trades today, and we've got our co-host with me as always, my brother Jack. We've seen a couple more trades, but are you on the Giants bandwagon at the moment, or are you bagging for Collingwood to win?
Oh no, we're on the non-Victorian bandwagon. We want a Brisbane GWS final.
That would be hilarious.
That's what we want.
That's what we want.
That's what the rest of Australia wants.
But I'm repping the Giants. I think they're hilarious. But their marketing to this final series has been hilarious. And I'm with Cooper Hamilton. I'm repping the high vis for you.
Yeah, we want him at any club.
We want him
at my club.
Yeah. But today we're here to talk about trades, and Cooper's not going anywhere as far as we know. So we're going to start with the confirmed trades, and these are basically the ones that we know. Like, they've requested a trade as of now, and they want to move club at the end of the year. So, of course, at the start of the week, we had Brendan Zac Fisher come out and say that he wants to join Port Adelaide. We also had Jordan Sweet requesting a trade to Port Adelaide and Asava Radicalea. So all three of these have to be done. As a Port Adelaide fan, are you excited for these three signings hopefully coming at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think you're looking at least we have to get Jordan Sweet and probably Zac Fisher. Chris Scott was on one of the broadcast TV shows start of the week, and he's said that he's going to play hardball with Port Adelaide over Asava. So that's going to be interesting. But
Geelong are asking for a potentially first round pick. That seems way
not
too
worth
high.
that. He's definitely not worth that.
But we'll move on and talk about this hasn't been 100% confirmed, but let's call 99%. Brodie Grundy is requesting a trade to Sydney. I'm super excited about that, being a Swans fan. Well, a Swans fan as of...
New South Wales fan,
we'll call me for now. Anyway, looks like Dylan Stephens has requested a trade outside of Sydney, and at the moment North Melbourne are in front for that one. Tomlinson has actually been told that he will not be going at the end of the year. Yeah. And this is basically the last confirmed piece of information regarding trade is Ben Mackay. It's now between Essendon and Hawthorn. So Sydney have dropped out of the race for Ben Mackay. Thank God. And at the moment, Ben Mackay is basically a two-horse race between Essendon and Hawthorn. Alright, but now let's move to the rumours. And we move right back to the 13th of the 9th, which is basically last week when we last did the video. By the way, make sure to check that one out right there. In that card right there. I got it right this time. So we start with Elijah Hollands, obviously the brother of Ollie Hollands, who's at Carlton. A lot of talk about maybe Elijah leaving at the end of the year as the new changes coming through with Dimmer Hardwick, and Carlton looking like a suitor for him. I think that'd be great for Carlton to bring in some more talent. Definitely got a set list, I think, for the next couple of years to really push towards a premiership at this stage, like the key bookends. So I think that just bringing in more talent's the one thing that Carlton need to do.
That's the way it will go, but I think he'll stay. I've got a feeling he might just stay. With the fact that Dimmer Hardwick's there, he might stay for another year and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think as well, he's been very injury prone since he's been at the Gold Coast. The year before, I know he did get some game time and played quite well, but then this year again, injuries and a little bit of form kept him out of the side. So we'll see how he goes. I actually think a little bit differently. I actually think he's a big chance of going to Carlton.
Yeah.
But because of his brother and the fact that they've got a lot of success, definitely brewing up there, down there. So that's my thoughts about that. Another one here is Buku Khamis. Hasn't really seen a lot of this guy in the AFL side, at least this year, because Rory Lobbs came into the team and has taken his role. How disappointed would you have to be locked away from out of the side because of him? But anyway, Collingwood and North Melbourne are interested in this guy, and he's been pretty good forward for the Bulldogs, and he kicked 40-odd goals this year in the VFL. I think he was behind Burgess, and I think he was third in the goal kicking for the VFL this year. So I don't know about Collingwood. I think he'd find it pretty difficult to get in there. He wants game time. I think you go to North Melbourne. If you want to fight for your spot at Collingwood and potentially win a premiership in the next couple of years, you go Collingwood 100%.
Yeah.
I think this one will definitely happen at the end of the year. I don't think he'll be at Whitten Oval at season's end.
He won't be at the Bulldogs.
Alright, so next up we've got Kyle Lohmann from the Brisbane Lions. There's a lot of talk about him potentially moving to the Bulldogs at season's end. If you guys don't know who Kyle Lohmann is, basically he's a utility forward, if you could say that. He got into the Brisbane team late in the year. I don't think he's featured in the first final, I believe. No, he didn't feature in the first final. But I think this is definitely a good idea, especially if they do lose someone like Buku Khamis. So another one as well is James Jordan. He has actually informed Melbourne that he's actually going to be exploring his free agency options at the end of the year. We've got the Bulldogs as an option, also Sydney, the Bombers, and the Blues are actually, and also the Saints. I think this guy should be moving at season's end. I think it's going to be very hard to get into this Melbourne midfield at the end of the year. He's been in and out throughout this year. I think he's definitely a big midfielder in the making. I'd love if he comes to the Swans. I think Sydney need to build their midfield depth. Maybe the Bulldogs, I think he could use him because they do need some extra midfielders, in my opinion. I think it's too much left off Bontempelli and Liberatore. But yeah, I think that any 5 of these teams would definitely benefit from this. Maybe not so much Carlton. I think Carlton would find it very difficult to get him into the midfield there. But I think any of the other 4, I think he's definitely worth it. Another Melbourne midfielder as well is James Harms. This one's pretty interesting because it basically looks like he's been shut out of the Melbourne lineup, especially in the final series and later in the season. He's been shut out. James Harms has been looked at by Richmond, Carlton, Essendon and Sydney. So it does look like that Carlton, Essendon and Sydney especially are looking to bulk up their midfield stock. A little bit surprising about that with Carlton, to be honest, but I guess that maybe Paddy Dow's leaving at season's end, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I think that Sydney and Essendon definitely need to build up their midfield stocks at this stage. I think that Essendon rely too much on Darcy Parish and Zach Merritt. Next one is a little bit interesting. Now, we obviously mentioned last week that Shane McAdam had requested a trade to Melbourne. And player that's been talked about, Harrison Petty, has actually been talked about as a potential part of the McAdam trade. So he would obviously go to Adelaide, Petty, and McAdam would go to Melbourne. I feel like Melbourne, that's the one thing they can't do is lose Harrison Petty. He was the one forward this year who actually looked capable until he got injured. Melbourne have to do everything they can to keep him because it doesn't look like Melbourne are linked to any forward this year anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know
they haven't
why.
really looked. Doesn't you normally hear something from now, especially after they've exited the finals. It's something. But
and the main reason that they missed the final, they didn't progress in finals because they didn't have a key forward to kick to. So they haven't been linked to any key forward. We've actually got a key forward we'll talk about next. But yeah, I think Melbourne will lock this one away pretty quickly and say we're not losing Harrison Petty. That's not going to be a part of the McAdam deal. So the key forward I was talking about is Mabior Chol. That was mentioned a couple of weeks ago that he could move. And 2 clubs in particular that are starting talks at least to bring Mabior Chol to the club is Adelaide and Brisbane. Don't understand why these 2 clubs, of any of them, are looking at Mabior Chol. I think that a team like Fremantle, a team like Melbourne, even Richmond could go back there. I don't think that'll happen. And I don't even think Port Adelaide, but maybe Port Adelaide, I guess. But I think there's teams that could definitely use a Mabior Chol type. But I don't think, and North Melbourne as well, I think would be definitely a good choice. But I don't think that Adelaide and Brisbane need them. I mean, Adelaide have got Fogarty, Thilthorpe, Riley O'Brien's still got a few more years in him, and Taylor Walker doesn't look like he's retiring at least for the next couple of years. And Brisbane have obviously got Danaher, they've got Hipwood. I don't think they could use really a Mabior Chol. Yeah, I think the Mabior Chol will be leaving at season's end. In the trade period. I just don't believe that the Crows and Brisbane are the right answer, especially for his career.
Like, if you want more game time, those are the 2 clubs you probably don't want to go to.
Yeah, unless you want to be sitting in the reserves for the rest of your career, really.
Yeah.
Well, at least until, if it's a Crows standard, then Taylor Walker retires. But the next one, I want to just give a brief mention, and I want to just say outright that I don't believe this will happen. But some talk was about Dion Prestia moving back to Queensland. And obviously with Dimmo Hardwick moving back, going up to the Gold Coast, that there could be a potential move of Dion Prestia going a fairy tale return back to the Gold Coast. I doubt this one very highly. Maybe there's a chance, but surely he can't go back to the Gold Coast. That's the way he shit on them.
Yeah,
surely not the Gold Coast.
None of those players like Lynch, May, Prestia.
They left the club at its worst. Yeah. And look, I understand why they did. I mean, I probably would have left myself if I had the talent that these guys had. But you can't go back now because they look like they've got a light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, Damien Hardwick's back. We're going to go and play back with the Gold Coast Suns because they're going to be good. No, I think that would be shit, in my opinion. I think maybe we'll put it in the thumbnail for a bit of clickbait. What do you think?
Why not?
We'll put it in the thumbnail. Next one is Ivan Soldo. Now, he was linked to the GWS Giants last year. Didn't eventuate, probably to the best for the Giants. I mean, Kieran Briggs is one of the best ruckmen in the comp. There's been a little bit of interest from Port Adelaide. I don't know if you've heard about this at all.
No.
Yeah, Port Adelaide have actually made a little bit of inquiries about Ivan Soldo. This should be quite interesting. We are going to talk a little bit about another ruckman in a minute who is at Port Adelaide who's potentially moving on. If Jordan Sweet requested a trade to Port Adelaide, this interest for Soldo came after the Sweet request. If I'm Jordan Sweet, I'd be feeling a little bit hard done by.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm sitting there as Jordan Sweet being told, oh yeah, you want to come to our club, we're going to give you the first rate, but that's only if Soldo doesn't come. I'd be feeling a bit shitty if I was him.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Port know what their ruck stocks are going to be like for next year. Like,
I mean, they just delisted Brent Eagle as well, so now they've got Vizentini, Lycett, who's still on the list, Sam Hayes, who I think will be going, which we talked about last week, Sweet, who I think in the end of the day he'll get there, and then potentially Soldo as well.
Yeah,
I feel like Soldo, the one thing about Ivan Soldo, though, he has shown he can play forward. If I'm Port, I think you just go with Jordan Sweet. He's going to be 25 next year, I believe. I think he's going to hit the peak of his career. I feel like Ivan Soldo, if he wants to leave to another club, we'll hope to him, but I feel like Port Adelaide should kind of steer clear of this and maybe let him go to another club.
But like, you just have to look at his Jordan Sweet's VFL season.
He would have been in probably most clubs he would have been in the main team of most clubs if it wasn't.
You just got to look at that, and I think you just got to think, well, he's shown the potential at VFL level. Bring him to the club, and he'll play pretty much most of the games in the AFL side next year for Port Adelaide. So,
all right. So the next one is Travis Boak. Now we talked about Travis Boak last week. The Port Adelaide were not going to sign him. There's been a couple of reports actually today that say that his exit meeting went quite well, and there is a chance that he will re-sign with Port Adelaide. But I actually heard this on the radio. This was on the way. This is while I was at work on the Triple M Rush Hour. Is the fact that there is some interest from Victorian clubs for Travis Boak if he does not re-sign with Port Adelaide. I'm unsure as to who would be the option. I saw someone in the comments say, "Why the hell would he go to Hawthorn?" Bro, I wasn't saying that he was going to go to Hawthorn. I was just saying that he could go to Hawthorn, and the Hawthorn could use him because he was an experienced player. And Hawthorn don't have that, but you know. Travis Boak to Victoria, I think it could happen if he doesn't re-sign with Port Adelaide. My opinion is that if he doesn't re-sign with Port Adelaide, that he will retire. That's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think he re-sign with Port Adelaide?
The way that he was talking about it, it's very likely that Port Adelaide will give him one more year. I do have a bit of a soft spot for him. Like, he was at Port Adelaide through the tough period. He could have went to the Geelong years ago, and he decided to stay. I think he's one player for Port Adelaide that deserves to go out on his own terms. That if he wants to retire, he can retire. But if he wants to go one more year, I think it's up to him.
I think what would have happened in this interview would have been, look, Trav, it's up to you. If you want to go another year, that's up to you. But there's no guarantee you're going to be in the 22.
Yeah.
So I think that's what may have happened. And I think, like you said, I think that Travis Boak probably has the right to decide if he wants to go on, and if Port Adelaide want to re-sign him, that's totally fine. But I feel like it's going to be very difficult for him to the start of next year. Next one is Tom Doedee. Now, for such a long time, he's been linked to the Brisbane Lions, and he's always wanted to stay at the Crows, but the deal that Adelaide are offering him, he hasn't liked. Sydney actually had a little bit of interest in him before he did his ACL. So basically, the club Brisbane were looking for the future here. Collingwood have actually came forward and have definitely started negotiations with Tom Doedee as well, and are looking to maybe prepare for life after Jeremy Howe, which is obviously a veteran defender for them. I think this actually be a good idea from Collingwood because, you know, the short term, Doedee won't be there, but Jeremy Howe should play on next year. And I don't know, maybe he would retire at the end of the year if the Collingwood were to win the premiership. But other than that, I think that Jeremy Howe will go next year. So I think that's actually a pretty decent idea for future plans for Collingwood to bring in Tom Doedee. I just still think that the Crows are going to get him here because I feel like at the end of the day, the Crows will fold, will give him a contract that's maybe not what he wants, but it will be close enough to where he can accept it. That's my thoughts. Yeah. I don't know if you think the same or differently.
I think it's about the same. Like, you've been hearing they want more defensive depth, so they left Borlace without a contract until they've said until the end of this trade period. If they can't get any more defensive depth, they're going to re-sign him. It just doesn't make any sense to why they would want to get rid of him. I think it's just up to Doedee. If he wants to stay, it's up to him. But if he wants to go, there's suitors for him. Another
one here, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, was Matt Flynn. Was the number one GWS ruckman for like half the year, and probably since Shane Mumford retired and Braden Bruce got injured. But obviously Kieran Briggs came on this year and has taken that spot in leaps and strides. But now West Coast is showing interest in Matt Flynn. I think it's probably a good idea. Yeah. I think he deserves to be in a number one spot. I think he is good enough. I think that Kieran Briggs has definitely proven why he's in this top team. I think 100% he should be there. But I think West Coast, basically, if anyone's showing interest to go on the West Coast, just let him in. I don't even care if he's not even a good player. I mean, they let go of Petreski-Seaton, so I think that was a pretty good idea from West Coast. Yeah, I think the West Coast could use a Matt Flynn. I think the Bailey Williams, I don't think he's a number one ruckman. I think he's a forward ruck, in my opinion, who's the current West Coast number one ruck. So I think this would be a great idea for West Coast to pick this guy up.
He was in their best 22 for the Giants for the start of this season, so he's good, capable ruckman in the AFL. So he wants game time. West Coast are going to give it to him. So
as long as they don't get injured.
Yeah.
Something in the water up at the West Coast Eagles training facility. But anyway, next one is Paddy Dow and Zac Fisher. We'll start with Paddy Dow. It looks pretty certain now that St Kilda are going to secure Paddy Dow after the Carlton season ends. I'm assuming he'll make a decision. Let's be honest. I think he will leave.
He's always going to be in the...
He's always going to be that 23, 26 role, really, in the emergency list. Unless McAdam midfielder gets injured like we saw in the year with Chera and Cripps at times, and Walsh obviously right at the start. But yeah, I think Paddy Dow is pretty much gone, and St Kilda look like the leaders here. I think it's a good choice for St Kilda. I think they need to build their midfield depth. And the other one, obviously, is Zac Fisher. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago as well. He's going to get a big money offer from North Melbourne, it seems. We mentioned this last time. Yeah. This feels like a Jared Pollock 2.0. They're going to overpay this guy. He hasn't really shown a lot. Like, B-grade player at best at the moment. Like
he's
at his best at the moment.
He's got a good kick on him, but...
I mean, the one thing I don't think North Melbourne need are half-backs. To wingman. I mean, that's the one North Melbourne spot I feel like they've got. I mean, they've got, Bailey Scott, Taron Thomas, Harry Sheasel, Luke McDonald, they've got a lot of those positions filled up, I feel like. But, I mean, I think Zac Fisher will add something to them, but I don't feel like they should be paying the absolute bank for him, in my opinion. But I feel like at season's end, Zac Fisher will be going to North Melbourne with the money offer that they're offering him. Another one here, we just got a couple more to go. This one is Scott Lycett. So, as I mentioned before, Port Adelaide ruck stocks, even though Bryn Teagle has been delisted, they've still got a pretty good ruck stock. Looks like that Scott Lycett has got some interest from Gardenia Park at Geelong, which doesn't surprise me. It looks like Geelong just want to add every single old player to their list. I just feel like Geelong have to stop doing this now. We've seen a couple of... they even signed Zach Tuohy again. And look, I think Zach Tuohy's a very good player, but I feel like now's the time that Geelong just have to cut a few of these older players. I mean, Isaac Smith probably went a year too long. I feel like he should have retired at the Premiership last year. Tom Hawkins hasn't got much time left. Dangerfield hasn't got much time left. They probably do need a ruckman. I feel like Geelong should be going... I don't know why Sean Darcy's just dropped off the face of the earth.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you heard, halfway during the season, Sean Darcy, and just went away. It was like, well, that's the prime ruckman you want.
Yeah. So basically, we'd start with, Brodie Grundy, then it would be Sean Darcy. He's that second best ruckman. And then you've got the players of, Soldo, Sweet... all that.
Yeah.
I feel like, Flynn as well, but I feel like that's second rate, because Darcy's basically going to be beaten out now from Luke Jackson, not because I think he's better, but because they're paying him so much money. I feel like, don't pick up Scott Lycett. Surely now is the time when you realise you've got to go a bit younger here.
Yeah.
Go for a Sean Darcy, in my opinion. And the last one, which is a trade rumour that came out today, actually, is... kind of a forgotten player. I don't know if you remember Nick Coffield from St Kilda.
Yeah, he's been very injury prone.
Yeah, he's a very injury prone player basically since debuting in 2018. Pretty high draft pick. It looks like the Bulldogs have made a little bit of interest in him. He is still contracted at St Kilda until 2024. I'll be interested to see. This may just be one that slides under the radar and gets done. I'm really unsure how to feel if he will be going or not because he is still contracted. So... this will be decided on if St Kilda want to let him go, really. Yeah. If St Kilda are happy to let him go, he'll go. If they want to keep him, he'll stay.
Because he was such a high pick, though, that Saints might want to fight for it.
But we've seen this with, Jack Billings. There's been a little bit of talk about Jack Billings maybe at the end of the year leaving. Yeah. But he's, 29 now, Jack Billings. Who's going to, we've seen Marcus Bontempelli. Obviously, that's the big talking point about Jack Billings went before Marcus Bontempelli.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And, Jack Billings has never really seen that, or has never seen the height of Marcus Bontempelli. So, obviously they missed out on that draft pick. But we've seen St Kilda mess up these draft picks in the past. Maybe it is time to let him go. Maybe, he'd probably be on a bit of money if he's up there in the top 10 picks. Yeah, I think if St Kilda maybe want to... we've seen a lot of players wanting to go to St Kilda. So maybe this would be a player that just drifts out. Maybe just clear up some space. But yeah, guys, that's basically all the trade rumours and confirmed trades, requests that we've seen coming at the end of the season. We will be continuing the weekly trade videos because they get some good views and we love that here. Go the Giants in the finals this week. At Port Adelaide, which player do you want to be traded the most so far?
Sweet. I want Jordan Sweet. I'm
happy with Brodie Grundy and I feel like that's pretty much an obvious one now. But I really hope that Sydney, now that they're out of the race for Ben Mackay, thank the Lord, that they really look hard at Dougal Howard. I think I've mentioned this a few times now, but Dougal Howard there's been a little bit of talk this year about him potentially moving, and I think Sydney need to seriously go hard for him, because they have re-signed Lewis Melican, so that's really good for the Swans in my opinion. But I think that Dane Rampy's definitely in the next year or two going to retire, so I think they still need to secure their defensive stocks, and I think Dougal Howard would be a great option. Dougal Howard, Lewis Melican, and Tom McCartan in the next 3 years for the Sydney Swans defence sounds really good to me. Yeah, make sure to let me know down below, guys, how you feel about the trade period coming up for your side. Make sure to wear your high vis if you're a Giant supporter going on in the finals.
Follow the bandwagon.
Join the bandwagon, as Cooper would say, my hero. And make sure to let me know as well if your team is still in the finals. But thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you all next time.
See you later, guys.